When the fastest plane of World War II first appeared, no one could believe it was made of wood. When the de Havilland Mosquito streaked across European skies for the first time, German pilots were convinced it had to be some secret American experiment. They couldn't imagine that a wooden aircraft, built in furniture factories, could outrun and outfight their best machines. But it could. Nicknamed the Wooden Wonder, the Mosquito was crafted from spruce and balsa, glued together with skill instead of rivets, and designed with one bold idea: speed over everything. It had no defensive guns, no armor, and barely any metal at all. Even so, it left the enemy chasing shadows. The British Air Ministry almost cancelled it several times, calling the project Freeman's Folly, after Air Marshal Wilfred Freeman, the man who refused to give up on it. Back in early 1940, designer Geoffrey de Havilland pitched an aircraft that sounded like madness. A bomber with no guns, built from wood, relying purely on speed to survive. The idea was mocked in meetings and laughed out of reports. Lord Beaverbrook, the Minister of Aircraft Production, argued that resources should go toward proven metal bombers, not pianos with wings. But Freeman saw something others didn't. He believed speed was the new armor. Letters between him and de Havilland show how both men risked their careers for the Mosquito's promise. By December that year, after countless debates, Freeman pushed through an order for 150 aircraft. Before the prototype had even flown, it was a decision that stunned the Air Ministry and changed aviation forever. Then, in November 1940, the Mosquito finally took to the skies for its first test flight. Its twin Merlin engines roared as the wooden frame lifted from Hatfield Airfield. The aircraft climbed smoothly, its polished skin glinting in the winter sun. Test pilot Geoffrey de Havilland Jr. pushed the throttle, hitting speeds beyond 380 miles per hour, faster than the Spitfire itself. Engineers watching from the ground were speechless. The folly had just become the future. The test results reached the Air Ministry within days, and the disbelief quickly turned to awe. Even without guns or armor, the Mosquito's raw performance silenced the doubters. By September 1941, the Royal Air Force had declared it fully operational. Across Britain, workshops that once made furniture and pianos began turning out pieces of the world's fastest bomber. The first batch of 150 aircraft, approved before a single flight, no longer seemed like a gamble, but a stroke of genius. Each Mosquito carried the touch of hundreds of craftsmen, woodworkers, cabinet makers, and coach builders, all working in secret to bring an impossible dream to life. What emerged from those quiet shops wasn't just another plane, it was a revolution in design. But flying the Mosquito was no easy task. Pilots called it a nervous thoroughbred, a machine that demanded absolute precision. With its enormous power-to-weight ratio, it could accelerate like nothing else in the sky, but it punished the slightest mistake. Training manuals and inquiry boards told a grim truth. If one engine failed during takeoff, the plane would lose control below 172 miles per hour. That number became sacred in every briefing room. New pilots drilled it into their minds. It was the line between life and death. Only the most skilled and disciplined air crews were cleared to fly the Mosquito on combat missions. "You didn't fly a Mosquito," one historian later wrote. "You negotiated with it." The aircraft's beauty hid its danger, and its danger made it legendary. For those who mastered its temperament, the reward was unmatched. Speed so great that even death struggled to keep up. That speed became the Mosquito's weapon. On January 30th, 1943, Berlin's air raid sirens screamed as Mosquito bombers thundered overhead, timed perfectly to interrupt Hermann Göring's national broadcast. The attack wasn't coincidence. It was theater. RAF crews had planned it down to the second, drowning out Nazi propaganda with the roar of Merlin engines. For 220 nights, Mosquitoes returned to Berlin and other German strongholds, striking with surgical precision. They blacked out radio stations, disrupted speeches, and shattered the illusion of German invincibility. Fighter squadrons scrambled to intercept them, but the Mosquitoes were gone before the Luftwaffe could even climb to altitude. Göring himself exploded in frustration, famously saying, "I turn green with envy when I see the Mosquito." Every raid drained German morale and resources. The British had built a ghost, too fast to catch, too light to destroy, and too clever to ignore. The Mosquito's genius wasn't just in its speed. It was in its versatility. Engineers could take the same wooden airframe and turn it into almost anything the war demanded. Some versions carried 420mm cannons and machine guns packed into the nose, shredding enemy aircraft and ground targets alike. Others swapped out weapons for cameras, capturing the first photographs of hidden V-1 and V-2 rocket sites deep inside enemy territory. Pathfinder variants led bomber formations at night, dropping bright flares that guided heavy bombers to their targets. Some were painted jet black and fitted with radar, hunting German night fighters in the darkness over Europe. There were even Mosquitoes that carried mail, weather equipment, or served as training aircraft. Each role required only minimal changes, a testament to an airframe built for adaptation. From British factories to distant outposts in Burma and the Pacific, the Mosquito evolved endlessly, proving that brilliance and simplicity could coexist. One of its most daring missions came on February 18, 1944. Flying just 15 feet above the frozen French countryside, Mosquito bombers roared toward Amiens prison. Their wings sliced through hedges and telegraph wires as pilots relied on instinct and courage more than instruments. At less than 60 feet off the ground, bomb bay doors opened, and two 500-pound bombs fell, their delayed fuses ticking as the planes tore away. Seconds later, the prison wall erupted in a cloud of stone and snow, blasting open a 60-foot breach. Chaos followed. Prisoners, French resistance members, political captives, and even common criminals rushed for freedom. Some vanished into the countryside, others were caught or killed before they could escape. Records later confirmed that 255 men made it out that day, though most were recaptured within hours. Around 80, however, slipped past German patrols and vanished, helped by the local resistance. The attack, codenamed Operation Jericho, became a symbol of daring precision and the human cost of freedom. By war's end, more than 40 distinct Mosquito variants had served in nearly every major theater. They flew thousands of missions, bombing raids, photo reconnaissance, night interceptions, and rescue operations. German records from the time reveal just how deeply the aircraft frustrated Luftwaffe command. Göring himself admitted he envied the British engineers who built such a marvel from mere wood and glue. Today, historians see the Mosquito not just as a warplane, but as a design decades ahead of its time, the blueprint for the modern multi-role aircraft. It proved that with imagination, courage, and a little bit of wood, you could change the very meaning of air power. By 1944, the Mosquito had become more than a weapon. It was a symbol of ingenuity and defiance. Every mission it flew carried the spirit of the craftsmen who built it, the pilots who trusted it, and the nation that refused to give up. While other bombers lumbered through the skies in formation, the Mosquito danced alone, swift, elegant, and almost untouchable. Its success forced even the most stubborn critics to rethink what air warfare meant. Traditional bombers relied on armor and firepower, but the Mosquito proved that speed, precision, and surprise could be deadlier. It could hit a target and vanish before enemy radar even registered its presence. It didn't just break records, it broke the rules. British intelligence quickly realized its strategic value. The Mosquito became the go-to aircraft for surgical strikes that required perfect timing and absolute accuracy. It bombed Gestapo headquarters in Norway and the Netherlands, destroyed railway bridges and communication centers, and crippled Nazi morale through sheer audacity. When the Luftwaffe tried to adapt, designing faster interceptors and radar systems, the Mosquito simply stayed one step ahead. Behind the sleek wooden shell lay countless human stories. Crews who risked everything on missions that lasted only minutes, but changed entire battles. Pilots often described the Mosquito as a living thing, sensitive, unpredictable, but loyal to those who treated it right. They trusted it with their lives, and it rarely let them down. Even as the war dragged on and technology advanced, the Mosquito refused to fade. It became a universal tool for victory. Bomber, night fighter, reconnaissance scout, and pathfinder all in one. Wherever it went, the enemy learned to fear the faint, rising hum of its twin Merlins. That sound meant trouble. Fast, precise, and unstoppable. The Germans had jets, rockets, and cutting-edge designs, but few of them matched the Mosquito's reliability or range. In an age obsessed with metal, this wooden machine reminded the world that innovation isn't about what you build with. It's about how you think. As 1944 turned to 1945, the Mosquito had already carved its name into aviation history. It wasn't the biggest or most powerful aircraft of the war, but it was the one that no one could catch or forget. When World War II finally neared its end, the Mosquito had already become a legend whispered across both Allied and Axis lines. To the British, it was proof that courage and creativity could outfly brute force. To the Germans, it was a phantom, always heard, rarely seen, and never caught. Even with the war's most advanced interceptors in pursuit, the Mosquito simply vanished into the clouds, leaving radar screens empty and commanders fuming. By the time peace returned to Europe, over 7,700 Mosquitoes had been built in dozens of versions: bombers, fighters, reconnaissance planes, trainers, and even transport models. No other aircraft of its era had worn so many roles so flawlessly. Its wooden design wasn't a weakness, it was its superpower. The use of non-strategic materials meant production never slowed, even when aluminum was scarce. The very thing mocked as a furniture plane had outlasted the skeptics and reshaped aerial warfare. After the war, Mosquitoes continued to serve in new skies. They flew with the Royal Air Force into the 1950s, mapped uncharted territories, and became the backbone of early Cold War reconnaissance missions. Pilots who had flown Spitfires, Hurricanes, and Lancasters often said the Mosquito was unlike anything else: light, fast, and alive beneath their hands. It demanded respect but rewarded skill. Historians today call it the first true multi-role aircraft, the ancestor of the versatile jets that would dominate the skies decades later. Its blend of speed, precision, and adaptability set the blueprint for the modern fighter-bomber. Even the sleek jets that followed, the Sabre, the Phantom, the Tornado, all carried a trace of the Mosquito's DNA. But beyond the statistics and the missions, there was something deeper. The Mosquito symbolized the power of human imagination under pressure. How vision could triumph when logic said, impossible. It was built not in mighty factories, but in small workshops by ordinary men and women who believed in a dream. They turned wood, glue, and hope into one of the greatest combat aircraft ever to take flight. The world remembers it as the wooden wonder, but to those who flew it, the Mosquito was more than that. It was freedom, courage, and the sound of victory. The echo of two roaring Merlins fading into the horizon of history.